Week 9 of the NFL season is upon us. Johnny Sports Network here to provide you with my Week 9 NFL predictions. Another strong week last week. 12-4 for Week 8, the 4 games I missed. The Vikings on Thursday night, which that game was surrounded by a lot of controversy. The Ravens, they once again had trouble with the Browns. It seems like in recent seasons, the Browns, they have given the Ravens some fits. I also was wrong about the Jets. That was one of the few games I felt like the Jets would have been able to win this season. The Jets were leading late, but then the Patriots, they ended up scoring late for another heartbreaking loss to the Jets. And the Bears and Commanders, the Bears with the lead late. And we know how that game ended, as it was the best finish to a game that we have seen this season between the Bears and Commanders, in a game that I do feel like it did live up to the hype to an extent. I mean, it was a very close competitive game, but I feel like it wasn't the kind of game we were hoping for. We were hoping that it was going to be a high scoring game where both teams were approaching the 30-point mark. But we still got a close competitive game and a thrilling finish. And you have to admire how close the games were this week. The majority of the games being a one possession game. That's what makes the game great. And can I continue my hot streak? As if my math is correct, I have went 37-8 in the last 3 weeks. Is this another big week for the public, or is this the week that you know who will get their revenge on us? I can't wait to see what Chris Sinclair says in the comment section, as I'm hoping he comes through and comments in the comment section like he does just about every single week, as he has been giving great insights, as well as Corky Dude. I hope I see him in the comments as well this week. Without further ado, let's get to the Week 9 NFL predictions. As always, we begin with Thursday Night Football. And this week, we have the Texans and the Jets. And what immediately sticks out to me, and I am sure it sticks out to you as well, the Jets are favored by a point and a half, and it's honestly very fitting. This game is on Halloween night, because is this a trick or a treat from you know who? The Jets, I do think they have the ability to stay in this game. As the Jets, they are fourth in total defense, or the Texans, they are second total defense. So if you look from a stats and numbers standpoint, and the fact this is a primetime game, and a lot of the times primetime games are lower scoring, I do think that this could go into the Jets' favor if the Jets' defense can keep the Jets in the game. As the Jets, they have done, I'd say, pretty well defensively. It's just their offenses just haven't been able to generate enough offense to win games. And they've done everything they can to try to turn the Jets' season around. And nothing is working. The Texans, they did announce that Stephon Diggs is out for the season with an ACL injury. And many are predicting that the Texans, they could go downhill in this second half of the season, which who knows if that's going to be the case or not, but I don't think the Texans will have trouble this week, at least. I do think this is a game where I think the Texans, they will find a way to win. And if it's low scoring, then it could favor the Jets, but I do like the Texans to find a way to win this game on Thursday night. Cowboys and Falcons. The Cowboys, they are desperate for a win as they are on a losing streak right now. And they go on the road to take on a Falcons team that is on top of the NFC South. And their offense has been showing some improvements. They did have to overcome a speed bump in the Seahawks a couple of weeks ago. An unpredictable Seahawks team. And it's not typical to say that it's a trap game for the home team, but this to me, it feels like a trap game for the Falcons. Every time a lot of people seem to be sold on the Falcons, especially myself, it's a letdown game. I felt the same way about the Falcons a couple weeks ago against the Seahawks, despite the Seahawks missing quite a bit of key players. And I would imagine that a lot of people are going to be against the Cowboys because the Cowboys, they are struggling this season, 3-4 so far on the year. I probably will regret this, but I'm going to pick the Falcons to win. I just feel like if I pick the Cowboys, then they're just going to let me down. They're going to lose 41-14 or something like that. I'm going to pick the Falcons. I'm hoping I don't regret that, but I would not be surprised if we all got blindsided this week and the Cowboys win. Up next, we have the Broncos and the Ravens. The Ravens are looking to respond after losing to the Browns last week in a game where the Ravens could have and maybe should have won, as Kyle Hamilton did drop what would have been an interception at the end of the game. While the Broncos, they started the season 0-2, but they have won 5 out of their last 6 games. And the Broncos, they are in the mix for a playoff spot. And Bo Nix, he has been managing the games really well. The Broncos defense, they have stepped up this entire season. But they go on the road to take on a Ravens team that, despite losing last week, I don't think that defines the Ravens at all. There's at least 2 games a season where the Ravens, they lose games against a inferior team compared to them. And it doesn't matter, as we see the Ravens, they still win a lot of games, make the playoffs. And I do think that applies here. However, I do think, though, that the Broncos, I think they'll be able to stay in this game as long as Bo Nix continues to play clean football. As I talked earlier in the season about how Bo Nix had all the potential in the world if he would play cleaner football and manage the games better, and he's been doing just that. Plus, the Ravens, they have been giving up quite a bit of points as of late. I do think the Ravens win, but with the spread at 9.5 points, I think the Broncos will be able to do just enough to cover in this game. But I do think the Ravens, they do respond and they do get the victory outright. Dolphins and Bills. Tua made his return for the Dolphins last week, and despite being on the losing end of that game to the Cardinals on a game-winning field goal as time expired, I will give the Dolphins credit. I thought that it was going to take at least a week for the Dolphins offense to return to their true form with Tua under center. I really thought it would be a letdown game for the Dolphins, as I saw a lot of people pick the Dolphins. In fact, I browsed around throughout a lot of social media platforms, and I mostly saw the people pick the Dolphins because people felt like Tua returning was going to automatically fix the Dolphins' issues, and I thought it would take a week. But unfortunately, they just couldn't get it done last week, and they go on the road to take on a Bills team that has had their number in recent seasons. And I do think this applies here. While the Dolphins' offense is looking like it's starting to quickly go back to its true form of two under center, this is just a Bills team that has had the Dolphins' number in recent seasons. And despite the Bills losing a couple of games against the stronger teams in the AFC and the Ravens, the Texans, they're on a 3-game winning streak. And I do think they continue that momentum from their last 3 games, and they take advantage of a Dolphins team that, despite the Dolphins offense looking much better with Tua back, I still think it's going to take at least this game for the Dolphins to really start to take that next level. Plus, the Bills, they take advantage of having the Dolphins number in recent years. Saints and Panthers, and this is the weekly game where I pick someone simply because I have to pick someone to win. Because part of the deal to making NFL predictions is you predict every single game. The Saints, they are optimistic that Derek Carr will be able to return this week, as he has missed the last few games due to an oblique injury. While the Panthers, they have traded wide receiver Deontay Johnson to the Ravens. And it's unknown who will start at quarterback for the Panthers this week. Will it be Bryce Young or will it be Andy Dalton, who missed last week due to a thumb injury he sustained in a car accident? Saints fans, they want Dennis Allen to be let go, while the Panthers, it's not uncommon for coaches to be let go after one season, but considering the circumstances, I think it would be really unfair if Dave Canales was let go after just one season. When you consider the situation Dave Canales, he took the Panthers coaching job, the situation that he signed up for, you have to at least give him about maybe 4 seasons to try to rebuild the franchise. I think no matter who does start at quarterback for either of these teams, I do think it comes down to running the football, which I do think that this will be a big game for Alvin Kamara. I do anticipate that he has multiple touchdowns in the game, close to 100 rushing yards, maybe even 40 to 50 receiving yards as well. I think no matter what the quarterback situation is, I think Alvin Kamara is the difference maker in this matchup. And I do think the Saints win with or without Derek Carr, and regardless who starts quarterback for the Panthers, whether it's Bryce Young or Andy Dalton. Raiders and Bengals. The Raiders, they fell to 2-6 on the year with a loss to the Chiefs last week, but they did make it a close game at the end of the day. They did cover. For those of you that do have interest in that element of the game, in the Bengals, they were ahead of the Eagles early on, but in the second half, a dominant performance by the Eagles as the Bengals fell to 3-5 on the season. And it's no surprise to see the Bengals having another slow first portion of the season. We've gotten used to seeing it in the last few years. The Bengals, they are favored by more than a touchdown in this game. And it sticks out to me because a couple times this season, the Bengals They were favored significantly, and they ended up losing outright. Week 1 against the Patriots, they were favored by about 8.5 to 9 points, and they lost. And in week 3, they were favored by about 8.5 to maybe 9 points, and they lost the Commanders. And that was the game where Jaden Daniels took flight as the favorite to win Rookie of the Year. I think the difference with this game is the Bengals, we should have expected them to start the season slow because they have in recent years. And they take advantage of a dysfunctional Raiders team, a Raiders team that gave their everything against the Chiefs. And I do think they are going to look sluggish in this game. And I think the Bengals, they will win this game convincingly. Chargers and Browns. The Chargers with a win over the Saints last week, a Saints team that has been riddled with injuries. And the Browns, shocking the world, upsetting the Ravens, a Ravens team that I felt like and still feel like are one of the juggernauts, not only in the AFC, but in the NFL. And Jameis Winston has given the Browns hope and confidence going into the second half of the season. And I will say honestly, Kevin Stefanski should be let go just for the simple fact that it took Deshaun Watson injuring his Achilles and being ruled out for the season to turn to Jameis Winston. It's honestly shameful if you ask me. Because if the Browns would have turned to Jameis Winston weeks ago when they should have, the Browns would be in 5 to 10 times a better of a position that they're in right now. Despite the Browns shocking the world last week, upsetting the Ravens, the Browns are still 2-6 on the season. And I am rooting for Jameis Winston, I really am. But unfortunately, I just think that the Browns, they're off an emotional victory, shocking the world, winning a game that nobody really saw coming. And they are going to be against a Chargers team that is starting to adapt to the Jim Harbaugh style of football, just running the football constantly. And I do think this is a big game for the Chargers running game, and they do get the win over the Browns. And Jameis Winston, I feel like, deserves better. I just honestly find it sickening that it took Deshaun Watson injuring his Achilles for the Browns to turn to Jameis Winston and say, hey, we want you to lead the team. They should have done it weeks ago. Commanders and Giants. And we saw this matchup in week 2 where the Commanders won on a game-winning field goal as time expired. And all the points the Commanders scored were off of Austin Seibert field goals. And now we see these two teams again. An NFC East showdown. The Commanders off an emotional win over the Bears on a game-winning Hail Mary pass, going on the road to take on a Giants team who's on a short week after playing on Monday Night Football. Another game where the Giants, they gave it a valiant effort, where they had opportunities to win that game, but they ultimately fell short. And the Giants, as much as they have a record of 2-5, I think they're a better team than their 2-5 record shows. And I would not be surprised if this was a letdown game from the Commanders, as they are off of the emotional victory, while the Giants, it's a desperate Giants team trying to salvage anything they can that is left of the season, as we are only approaching the halfway point, as they try to get momentum for that second half of the year. Daniel Jones, he has had some of his best performances as an NFL quarterback against the Commanders. Despite the Commanders off an emotional victory, and it could translate into looking sluggish and flat in the next game, I am picking the Commanders to win. But I do think that it is a field goal game, and as of the moment of me recording this, I think the Commanders are favored by 3.5 points. So if you can afford to lose something this week, if I was in your position, I would be able to afford to lose this week. I would take some value in the points of the Giants, but I do think outright the Commanders, they do win this game. Patriots and Titans, and just like Saints and Panthers, this is a game this week where I am picking someone for the simple fact I have to pick someone to win. The Patriots, they are off an emotional victory over the Jets in a game where Ramondre Stevenson scored the game-winning touchdown with just seconds remaining, while the Titans, they are 1-6 on the year, with their only win being against the Dolphins without Tua. And right now the Titans, they are favored by 3 points, which I do think surprises a lot of people, considering the Titans are only a 1-win team. But a big reason why I think the Titans are favored in this game is because the Patriots, they traded Josh Uche to the Chiefs, and it's unknown who's going to be starting at quarterback right now, if it'll be Drake May, who left the game early last week with a concussion, or Jacoby Brissett. And if Mason Rudolph starts at quarterback for the Titans, I think the Titans have a much better chance to succeed offensively if he is the starter, because Will Levis, he has been the reason why the Titans, they have lost some games this season. It's Will Levis turnovers that has cost the Titans in a couple games. I just think that this is one of those few games the Titans, I do think they have a strong chance of winning, because throughout the entire season, the Titans defense, they've done everything they could to give their offense the best chance to win. But turnovers have been costly for them. The offense just hasn't been able to generate enough. The Titans, they're a much better team than what their 1-6 record shows. If their offense was just decent, I think the Titans, they could have maybe at least 3 wins. But I do think the Titans, they do win this game in a game where I have to pick someone to win. There's just so many unknowns with the quarterback situation on both teams, but if I do have a change of heart for this game, I will post in the comments section to let you know. Bears and Cardinals. The Bears, a heartbreaking loss last week to the Commanders on a game-winning Hail Mary pass by Jaden Daniels to Noah Brown. Cornerback Tyreek Stevenson, he was captured on camera taunting Commanders fans right before the play and even as the play is going on. And he is the one who tips the pass back to Noah Brown. He catches it in the end zone as the Commanders win. And it's a devastating loss to the Bears. And they look to respond, going on the road to take on a Cardinals team for the second week in a row has won on a game-winning field goal as time expired. And the Cardinals, they continue to be the most unpredictable team in the entire league. It seems like the NFC West is just very unpredictable this season. I remember after week 2 or week 3, I felt like the Cardinals, they were the favorites in the NFC West. And then a complete letdown against the Commanders early on in the season. And now the Cardinals, they right now are at 4-4 in a very competitive and tight race in the NFC West. I just think this is a redemption game for Tyreek Stevenson. As much as you don't celebrate until the game is over, as my dad is really passionate about players celebrating before the game is over, acting like they won the game before they won, and then to lose very shamefully as the Bears did. The shameful ending of the week and the shameful ending of the season so far. He held himself accountable, which I do respect. And I have a feeling the Bears win this game. And Tyreek Stevenson, he gets a pick 6 in this game to redeem himself as the Bears win and bounce back after last week. Jaguars and Eagles. A storyline for this game that I don't think is getting a lot of attention in the public eye. Jaguars head coach Doug Peterson returning home to Philly to coach against his former team. The team he won a Super Bowl with, but was let go a few seasons later. And I feel like the reason that it may not be getting a lot of traction in the public eye is because the Jaguars, they are 2-6 on the season, and people are speculating that Doug Peterson is on his way out in Jacksonville, which if the Jaguars didn't win against the Patriots in London a couple of weeks ago, I think that would have been the case. While the Eagles, ever since the bye week, the Eagles, they are starting to get back to the form that they had when they made that run to the Super Bowl. Even though there is still some injuries the Eagles are dealing with, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, they've returned to the lineup. While there is still some injuries, there is this portion of the schedule that the Eagles, they at least are able to benefit from right now while they start to get healthy. It's almost kind of like the 49ers in seasons past, where they have started off slow in the season, mainly because they're dealing with injuries. And then as the season goes along, they get healthier, and then they start to win games. And I think that is the case here for the Eagles. I think they get the win, and I think that it's a very convincing win for the Eagles. Lions and Packers in the game of the week. The Lions have established themselves as the best team in the NFC. And at this point in time, at least in my opinion, I don't know about everybody else, but the only team who can stop the Chiefs from three-peating. I do think this is a trap game for the Lions. Regardless of the information we have been told, Jordan Love's stash of this game is in question, as he left the game last week against the Jaguars with the groin injury. The Packers in their last 2 games, they have won on a game-winning field goal as time expired, just like the Cardinals have. If Jordan Love was fully healthy in this game, I would 100% pick the Packers to win this game. But even if Jordan Love doesn't play, he's not at 100%. Is it going to be Jordan Love from Malik Willis? A Jordan Love who's not at 100%, or Malik Willis, who we saw get the job done against the Colts in week 2, and then once again in week 3 against the Titans, in what was a very emotional return for Malik Willis. I'm going to pick the Lions to win this game because Jordan Love isn't at 100%, even if he does play in this game, and if Jordan Love wasn't 100%, I would pick the Packers to win this game because it would be a trap game, more of a trap game at least. So I think this is a trap game regardless. As last season we saw the Packers and Lions play on Thanksgiving, and it was a game where the Packers shocked everybody and upset the Lions, and that was the turning point in the Packers season. But I think the Lions, they are ready this time around. I think the Lions, they get the win and move to 7-1 on the year. Rams and Seahawks. The Rams upset the Vikings on Thursday Night Football last week in what was the return of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. And now they go on the road to take on a Seahawks team that I do find inconsistent, and I have found inconsistent in the last few seasons. I think some people that tune in regularly, they may seem like I'm sounding like a broken record, saying this almost every single week. But the Seahawks, they are and have been inconsistent for years now. Which Seahawks defense shows up determines about 95% of the Seahawks games in these last few seasons. Because one week the Seahawks, they can look like a top 5 defense in the league, an elite defense, the return of the Legion of Boom, or a bottom tier defense in the league, one of the worst defenses in the NFL. There are rumors that the Rams are interested in trading Cooper Kupp. The Cooper Kupp's on the trade block. I don't know how true that this rumor is, but there were rumors that some teams were reaching out to see what they can get, what they can give up for Matthew Stafford. I don't know how true that rumor is. I'm taking that one with a grain of salt. But if the Rams don't do anything this week, if the Rams just stay put, I do think it's possible the Rams, they could start to go on a run. I do think they pull off the upset this week. They upset an inconsistent Seahawks team, an unpredictable Seahawks team, because I am leaning towards this being a game with the Seahawks. They do look like a bottom tier defense in the league. Colts and Vikings, Sunday Night Football. The Colts, they have announced that Anthony Richardson will be benched in favor of Joe Flacco for this game on Sunday night. And truthfully, as much as I do think Anthony Richardson has potential to really excel in this league, I think it's best for him at this time. It gives Anthony Richardson the opportunity to learn under a veteran of the game in Joe Flacco. As Anthony Richardson, he has really been struggling so far this season. As he has been injured, he's missed some games due to injury. And he exited the field briefly in the game last week because he said that he felt exhausted, that he felt like he needed a break. And now he is being benched in favor of Joe Flacco. And they go on the road to take on a Vikings team that lost on Thursday Night Football to the Rams in a game that was really centered around controversy in that game. And I do think that the Vikings, they do win this game, not only with them having the extra rest factor to their advantage, but I just think that this Vikings defense will be able to provide fits like they have for a lot of quarterbacks this season. However, I do think that the Colts did make the smart move to start Joe Flacco in this game, simply because I do think with Joe Flacco's experience, he does have the ability to try to overcome this Vikings defense. But I just think this is a game where we see the Vikings, they win a very close one. Although the Vikings, they have lost 2 in a row since starting the year 5-0. I just think with this extra time to prepare, I do think that the Vikings, they do have the edge in this matchup. However, I don't know how far the Vikings can exactly go with Sam Darnold. And I have nothing against Sam Darnold. I just don't know if he's that guy that can lead the Vikings on a run in the playoffs. Honestly, I do feel like if the NFC West wasn't as close and competitive as it is, I felt like they would have reached out to the Rams and see what they can give up for Matthew Stafford. But the only reason why I think the Rams wouldn't do it is because of how close the NFC West is right now. But either way, I do think the Vikings win this game. But if the Colts won this game, I wouldn't be surprised by that either. Week 9 concludes with Monday Night Football, Buccaneers and Chiefs, the 15th and final game of the week, as the 49ers and the Steelers both have their bye week this week. I forgot to acknowledge that earlier, and I do apologize. The Chiefs are the only remaining undefeated team in the league at 7-0. And they'll be hosting the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. As the Buccaneers, they are going to be really understaffed for this game, as Mike Evans is out for this game, Chris Godwin out for the season. But despite being without them both, the Buccaneers, they gave a valiant effort against the Falcons last week in a game that was one of the biggest games of the week, as the winner of that game would have taken sole possession of first place in the NFC South. The Chiefs, I do think they win this game. However, there has been time after time this season where the Chiefs, they have struggled to cover. They did not cover against the Raiders last week. They did not cover in week 2 against the Bengals. They did not cover in week 3 against the Falcons. They did not cover against the Chargers early on in the season. Despite the Buccaneers being without their top 2 receivers, I do think that seeing the Chiefs struggle to cover in some games this season, I do think there is value in taking the points with the Buccaneers. But all that does matter is the Chiefs, they do win this game outright, because at the end of the day, the only thing that truly matters is who wins and loses outright. And as mentioned earlier, at this point in time, I think the only team stopping the Chiefs from three-peating is the Lions. However, these next 2 games for the Chiefs are going to be a big test for them, as next week they do play the Broncos. And the Broncos, more often than not, they do frustrate the Chiefs a little bit. As the Broncos, they may have only defeated Patrick Mahomes one time since he entered the league. But more often than not, the Broncos, they do give the Chiefs fits. And the week after that, against the Bills, they seem to have the Chiefs' number in the regular season when it doesn't matter. And that will do it for my Week 9 NFL predictions. Comment your predictions down below. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. My Week 8 NFL takeaways will be on YouTube Shorts. As far as YouTube Shorts throughout the rest of the week, I will do YouTube Shorts on anything that sticks out to me that takes place in sports throughout the week. Enjoy the games this week. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope to see you back next week. Until next time, and remember, Vegas is always watching.